Susan. Susan.
Oh, hey, Mouse.
Is that sunglasses you're wearing?
Yeah, I'm having a little bit allergy and we're recording. I don't want our guests or the audience to see my swollen eyes. Is that okay?
Yeah, I guess. But you know, this is a podcast, okay? So, I mean, no one will listen to your sunglasses, will they?
Good point. I guess I'm just a little bit nervous and super excited for our guest today. She's an amazing yoga teacher, an amazing writer talking about life.
Yeah, and you will love her. She's such an inspiration, and one of the persons on this planet that I learned the most from, much thanks to her fantastic book. I wanted to read a little bit just to get some inspiration yesterday evening, and I ended up just continuing and almost reading the entire thing once again. So it's a book I definitely recommend to read.
That's incredible. I will have to get that book as well. Well, all right, now let's get ready for our guests.
Okay, here comes.
Modern Day Yoga Talks, brought to you by New York City-based yoga and meditation teacher Susan Hu and Stockholm-based musician and producer Songs of Eden. Now, welcome to Yoga Yay, as we connect with guests from all over the world.
So hey, Rhi, welcome to our little podcast that we're calling Yoga Yay.
Yoga Yay, welcome.
Hey. And what we love to start with is our little special welcome, which is called the Welcome. So we wonder if you want to join us on that one.
Okay, wish me luck. I'm nervous now.
It's only fun, nothing to be nervous about. So we can all do it together. We just turn our welcome into our own, so we can send out all those great vibes to everyone who's listening. Shall we start?
Hey.
All right. Welcome. I thought that's perfect. What did you think?
I feel grounded.
I thought it was great.
Amazing. Off to a good start.
Joy.
Yeah, so we are so happy here today you're with us. So this podcast, Yoga Yay, we created it so we can connect with different yogis and yoginis who's living in the modern day and age. And we're so excited to hear about your journey because you're such an expert in movement and how to bring out the love and joy through movement to your friends, to your family, to your clients. So how did you start your journey? Just tell us a little bit about your story.
Well, I guess like way back, I've always been a mover. So before Lainey was on the world, I was like an athlete in water polo and running and swimming. And the only way to spend time with my dad was to hop on a bicycle like at 6 a.m. on Saturday and do a 70-kilometer bike ride followed by tennis or swimming or something. So, you know, like my dad's time was movement, and that kind of like automatically, habitually went into me because I wanted time with dad. So then I became this mover and doing a lot of sports. And it also, I think right from the beginning was a very combination between a moving meditation and sensual experience. Sensual meaning that like I was feeling the wind, my heartbeat, you know, my body functions. And I think as a person that is super, super sensitive myself, I often get caught up in my mind and inbrained instead of embodied. And so movement was like that only place where I was all embodied. And so Lainey came along and I was dealing with post and prenatal depression. And so I also couldn't go out for a run anymore. Like I couldn't just leave my, you know, little one in the room. Although my father left my brother and I when poor mum had to drive up to the, in the old days, drive up, see dad riding his bicycle. And she's like, right, where's the kids? You know, I'm 1 and my brother's 4. So the times have changed. It's funny thinking about this, that, you know, I'm more like my mother would never think to do that, but it makes me laugh when mum tells me these stories about us. But it meant that I had to find movement in a place of being at home. And so my first opinion was, hey, I can learn how to do a headstand or handstand or splits or, you know, like, so first it was very physical because I came from a running background. You know, it's very tappers, very like drive. in the santosha, the calmness, the embodied piece isn't really there at that stage. So I kind of started yoga, but I didn't really start it till I'd say about 2 years later, when my pre and postnatal depression hit its all-time low and I attempted on my life. And that my brother, I rang my brother, I remember afterwards, and he reminded me of my little person right here, you know, and look at that, there's your reason why. And that was a big, like, oh my God moment, as in the world is so much more than my thoughts, and it's so much more than these asanas, as in a physical realm. And it was then that I utilized the breath for the first time, but also with the handstand, because the handstand was that reminder, fall down 7 times, stand up 8. And so that's when yoga really hit home. Yeah. So it's kind of like a summary of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like I can totally relate. As I start to deepen my own practice, my teachings start to shift a little bit. As I am tapping into the spiritual teachings, maybe I naturally want to share more of, like, say, a quote from the Gita or some deeper teachings. So since you have been teaching for so long and all over the world, how have you noticed your own personal practice has helped you to basically develop the way you're teaching now? Because I know you're very focusing on the movement and the breath, the connection between these two. Can you talk a little bit about this part?
I think I'm a little bit of a random teacher, shall we say, in the sense that I'm not, I know a lot of people go in there with this huge intention and sequencing plans, and I've always been the person that has this huge feeling coming into it. I almost kind of feel like it's kind of a music-based, you know, sometimes, I don't know, when I see artists sing and move, like I see them move through their energy within inside them. And I kind of work from the basis that I'm moving from the energy that's in me and the energy within the other people in the class. So I don't kind of come with the overall goal in mind. I come with the overall placement that they're going to feel a little bit more kinder by the time they come out. So that might mean I'm having a shit day, but I can accept it. Or I'm having a great day and I don't need to prove anymore. Like, that's the kind of process. So I'm basically looking at people in the class, seeing how they're feeling, seeing how they're reacting, seeing how they're progressing through the potential movements that we're having. Do I need to step back? Is there possibility for people to go forward? And that's kind of the way I work, rather than, you know, so many people have these like chakra flows and beautiful destination flows into dragonfly, or, you know, I love doing them, but I've never been that well suited to doing that. You know, it's kind of, I really feel like it's now, that's all I have, and who is with me now and who am I now? So let's see what we'll put together in that moment.
Yeah, this is a question for both of you, I guess, but when I usually, or sometimes when I like play music, I like to go the total complete other way around, just to shake up the room kind of. And I don't know if that's something you can do in the practice. Like if you have an audience, let's say they're really noisy, and then you can start playing really soft, and then after a while they start to like listening, or the other way around, if you have like an audience that are like kind of almost disturbed about the music, then you just go all in, and then if you're lucky you win them over, and you end up having an awesome time together. I don't know if that's something you can use in like a yoga practice, if you feel that the students aren't really on it, then you just, is there a way to do that?
I feel like there's a lesson in every yoga practice myself, and what I'm finding more and more, and even with myself, is that it's a mental game, as in I'm ingrained and I need to come back to embodiment. And also I'm finding the same for people, like, you know, or your children and your parenting, or with your yoga flow, that you need to read the room and you do need to balance out the harmony of what they have. So you do need to counteract a lot of the energy too. And much to the disgrace of some people, you actually find if you're able to allow them to counteract it but embody it, then you'll win them over. But if you can't get them to embody it, then you kind of have a bit of a issue going on. So it depends how ingrained the people are within your class. Just like you could go in there with the greatest intention, but your mind is like 10 monkeys with cymbals going on. Doesn't matter what you do. If you don't get back into your body, you're just going to hear those cymbals and be, crunching by the end of your practice. So I think it's always about the somatic first person experience, but that's playing with God in some ways, as in God is in ourselves, and are we able to read the people just like music, and embodiment doesn't happen like that. So sometimes you get blessed to have regulars and you can win them over, and sometimes you get blessed that it sinks in and you get harmony, but other times people need more time, but you might not see the seed you sowed, but it comes later. And I think that's the great thing about yoga and music, that you might think that someone didn't enjoy it, but then a couple of years later, they're kind of listening to your music and they're like, that kind of resonates with me. Or they come back to that yoga flow and they're like, that wasn't so bad. I don't know what I was complaining about. So sometimes the seeds you sow are more important than the reaction and validation you have as the extrinsic motivation as a yoga teacher. It's more you wanting to plant an intrinsic motivation that will allow for them to bloom internally.
Yeah. And I think that's also depending on where we are in the world, I guess. Like we talked before about like culture, like if you look at the Nordic countries and perhaps north of Europe, we have like some part of us are skeptical. It's yeah. not as easy. If you go to in the States and say, yeah, let's do this, everyone is yay. But if you do it in Sweden, it's like, okay, what is this about? Like, okay. I remember once when I was putting up my piano and this old lady approached me and said, so are you going to play live music? I say, yeah. And then, okay, then I'm going to sit at another table. Oh, and that is like so typical Swedish. And that time I couldn't help myself but saying, but you haven't even heard a tone. How can you predict what's going to happen if you don't have a clue? But yeah.
But I do have to say I love that about European countries, is that that when you have their love, you have their love. But in America, it's like, is it real? Like sometimes you're like, there's like this, like one of my friends, she's always like, I love you. And I'm like, I don't say that often. And I caught myself saying it because I'd heard her say it so much. I'm like, that doesn't feel right. There's no intention to it. Like, why did I say that to some stranger? Like I'd never done it in my life. And I realized how it's more a sense of just saying it because it's there. And I love when I'm in Europe and you're like, I've really got a friend here. This is awesome, but when I'm in other places, sometimes it's like, is this really like, could I call them up if I'm having a bad day? Like I really like when people love you, and you earned their love. I feel like that's the greatest love.
I was going to say, not to defend Americans, but I think when we say I love you, at least at that moment, the love is there. Yes. Maybe it's not as deep as a connection as I will do anything for you. But at least that moment, they do have this strong feeling, strong emotions to make you feel loved. So
yeah, no, I agree with that. I know, I agree. I love feeling loved. But at the end of the day, the only thing that I wonder is, I want to know that I am loved, and will you love me if I'm being a shitty person sometimes? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
It's like how unconditional this love is, how deep the connection is.
I guess because I'm older now, I'm searching like those questions. I really like having my bubble blowing up a little bit like any human, and I really appreciate if someone says they love me, particularly when I'm having a bad day. But like it's the same with comments on social media. I'm like, but do you really think I'm phenomenal? Like, or is this just the pose, or is this just, your thought pattern because you don't know me, because I'm having a really shitty day and I don't think I'm a very good person right now. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so the comments, they're great sometimes, but I really want someone to sit with me and go, you're being a bit of a jackass, but I still love you. Let's keep going. Like, I really value that since being in European countries. You know, they can be super strong. And for an Australian, I'm super overwhelmed. Like if someone said that to me about the music and I was playing live music, I'd be like, oh God, I'm so sorry. Should I move? Like I would be so overwhelmed by it, you know, but
I'm going to become a farmer in Australia tomorrow. Yeah, but I guess it's pros and cons with everything. Like I love to be in the States just because like 80% of the you have fun all the time, but as you said, I had this friend who told me that the first time he was in Los Angeles, he met this guy who said, "Yeah, bro, let's go and get some drinks." And my friend being Swedish was okay, so he went to the bar and waited outside, and then after a few days he learned that is something you just say, which is
yes.
I think that's spot on the difference from the States and like Europe or perhaps North Europe, that you say, yeah, let's go and grab some drinks, then you're actually going and grabbing drinks, you're not just saying it.
You're understanding the attention. I think that's the difference, and I've had to learn the intentions in Switzerland and Austria and Germany, and they're completely different to what I know. And then I go back to Australia and I'm like, hang on a minute, I've got to, you know, readjust my mind again. So I think it's really just like you say, like, you know, the love is there in the moment. And for us in Europe, you know, and we're a bit more stubborn in saying the love's there, and, you know, we might need a few moments to climb up that wall, peek our head over, make sure that no one's, you know, embarrass us for saying such strong emotions. But when we say it, you know, we're not going back on it. So that's it.
That's beautiful. Yada, I think I also want to just take a step back to talk about how you were mentioning when you were in a class, you try to read the people, connect with them. But ultimately, I love what you were sharing, saying, ultimately, God is through us. I am not a teacher. We're just channeling those teachers. That's such a beautiful, beautiful way of really humbling our own consciousness, but also be able to really see yourself as someone that's helping the students rather than I am the teacher. I'm guiding you. Have to do what I say. I thought that was such a beautiful way to look at it.
Thank you. Yeah, I my teacher, Blissology in Finn, he's just a phenomenal teacher. I remember the first time we met him and I did my teacher training, it was the first time I really did live teaching. You know, I'd learnt from videos, and he'd asked this question, us to rate something. I don't even remember what it was. And I was like, crap, I hate rating. Like, you know, and everyone's rating it. And I'm like, crap. And I hate being different, which I'm always different. And I'm like, I hate pulling things out of place. And here I was doing all the things I hate. And I was like, yeah, but I can't rate it, you know, you just can't rate this stuff, you know. I was like, and instead of him like driving home that I had to be and I had to fit into this like question or place or moment, he's like, sure, okay, let's talk about this. Let's see where you're coming from. And every time through our teacher training, you know, someone would come up with a counter, he'd be like, cool, I'm just going to take this home with me. I'm just going to look into it. And he's a phenomenally and knowledgeable human. Like I can't keep up with his mind. He's, you know, languages, everything. But never once is he a know-it-all. And it was just so powerful for me because I came to yoga and I experienced there's a lot of know-it-alls in yoga and a lot of preferred yoga ways and preferred this and preferred that. And I've always thought that yoga is non-judgment. And I know we all have our conditioning and judgment, but that was my intention for yoga because I wanted to not stop judging myself, because part of depression is a huge part of judgment. And I found it very hard. And when I met him, I was like, there are people out there that really, like, they're not about me. Of course, they're promoting themselves, but they're promoting themselves through the being that they are going through an experience, and they are a light to help others. And that was what was phenomenal about Ian, and really made me believe that it's okay that I also want to do the same. Although I trigger and get misunderstood, everything that I do is reinventing the wheel. You know, like I take something from this conversation, this smile today will make me happier when I interact, you know, these laughters and so on. And so I'm always so humbled when people are like, you're phenomenal. I'm like, no, I just want to give everyone else the information and credit, because really I'm just a sum total of every single moment and person that I've met. And my teaching is the sum total of every piece of information I've accrued. I am spitting it out in my own weird and wonderful way, of course, that will register for some and register not for others. But at the end of the day, I am the sum total of everything. So that's what I want the students to understand. Like, they are teaching me, I am teaching them. We are coming together to find harmony, but not one above the other. We're all walking side by side like, don't know what we're doing. Good luck, Oh, cool. That's good. I'm going to take that. I'm going to take that. That's crap. Let's push that over there. That's kind of the process of yoga teaching in life, I feel.
Yeah, absolutely. My teacher always say that the real yoga tradition, it always comes from the parampara. Students learn from teacher, they learn from their teacher, and it go all the way back to divinity itself. And when we start to feel that way, then we feel more empowered rather than I'm making up this pose, I'm making up this class. Then we already started to feel more disconnected with the teaching itself. Yes. I really love how you put it together. Like, I am just the sum of everything I have learned. Then I put it together, I share with you. And then hopefully your student will be able to share the same knowledge and wisdom with someone else as well. That's absolutely beautiful. I love it so much.
Yeah, a really lovely way to see it.
I just think it's beautiful when you think about the collective world. Like, if you think about nature and we're connected to it, the earth that is existing here, the rain is connected to decreasing like carbon dioxide, which decreases the heat in our planet, right? Therefore, we are able to live here. So everything is, and the trees give us oxygen and the algae gives us oxygen, and then we give carbon dioxide for the plants to grow. Like, that's what yoga is really teaching us. We're all connected, but I feel like that's sometimes gets lost, and it's hard to place that bigger picture in. But that's what I'm always thinking. Like, at the end of the day, we all exist because we're the sum total. Even spiders are here to kill the bugs for us. Yay, spiders! There's a positive to everything that we worry about or have on this earth, and there's a reason for everything. And I think that's the same in yoga. And I think when we get deeper into it, when we really are practicing yoga, we all see that. But I feel like a lot of us are just, let's get this warrior two down pat and handstand. But I hope in time that we'll have more of the ability just to go, let's just get together and let's all have a little bit more joy and fun and be a better person.
Yeah, and as you wrote in your book that we're all yogis in some way. I really love that. I really wanted to ask you about just a passage from your book that I think it was the one that resonated most, or the one that I learned most from in my own life, and that was quieting your inner criticism or your
inner critic.
Inner critic,
yeah.
Because that's something that I've been working on. Maybe I didn't even realize it, but after reading your book, I was like, oh my God, I wrote 3 songs today. I can write 1 more. I can lay down on the sofa and drink coffee without feeling guilt or so to say.
I think it's really important, and I think I just want to state, as a writer of a book, I want everyone to know that I'm still working on myself. Like, I have not got this monkey mind down pat. Like, some days, you're soaring and it's fantastic and I'm not sure what I was worrying about. But other days it's like, holy crap, why am I such a mean bugger to myself? And I think it comes down to the fact that we are just go society, and we are busy, but not intentionally busy. We're like number busy, perhaps is the best way. And when I was younger, I was an athlete, I was a runner, and weight was a big issue. I had a few of my friends had eating disorders, and, I was very lean because leanness was allowed to distance running. You could be quite fast. But I remember I worked on a cruise ship, and I stopped weighing myself. I was like, what does this number do? Or tell me, my clothes fit. And I realized in that moment how there was so many things I was measuring myself unnecessarily, which would make or break me as a human, and in turn make or break my perception of the world and how I would operate, whether I would feel decent, whether I'd want to do something or so on. And it was from those small increments. Like I even remember being pregnant, and I'd be like, I'd stick my fingers in my ears and they would read the weight, and I'd be like, you know, like I wouldn't look down, and I have no idea how much I weigh, you know, but I wasn't going there, you know, because I'm sure I had a good belly and a bubble butt, everyone said. So, you know, but I didn't want to ruin the pregnancy by knowing my mind would be calibrated to being irritated by numbers. So I think that's where it began. And then when you're dealing with anxiety and depression, and it's something that I, you know, constantly have to work on, I notice that firstly, it's my inner voice. It's not the world that has changed. And secondly, a lot of my inner voice is other people's voices.
Mm-hmm.
And if I really quieten down, I'm like, hey, it's not even me saying that. Like, I don't know where I accrued it, but like, I don't even believe that. So I'm getting curious with where that voice is coming from. And I think that's really important in the inner critic. It's like, well, hey, okay, I was taught that, but I've never believed that in my life. I'm just going to work on getting rid of that. You know, thanks very much. Thank you for learning. And so I think that's about inner critic as well. Like, crap, do I really need to feel like this anymore? No. Okay.
Yeah. And I think in your book, you mentioned that choose compassion over those inner thoughts. So how did you come to that place from recognizing the inner voices, they're not me? How did you come from that place towards, okay, now I'm able to be more compassionate towards myself?
I think that's a process that's lifelong and always going to be. But I think having a daughter really has helped me a lot. I know, like, it's been a really stressful time, and there's some days I felt like just not showing up enough as a mum. But, you know, she's always telling me I'm great. Like, she's like, I know she's going to get to a teenager and it's going to be the counter. So I'm working on taking all those words in. But she's like the compassion that I forgot. And I feel as a parent, we are often so compassionate with our children and then we stop. And I don't want to do that. And I want to remember that inner child voice, and I can see that in my daughter. And that inner child voice is always like, yeah, you know, you might be a bit of a nasty-wasty, but I'm going to find some sunshine somewhere. Like, that inner child voice will, like, I'm going to either ignore it, or I'm going to make you laugh and be silly, or I'm just going to do my own activity over here. And so I think it was about, like, some days was sitting with it and saying, hang on, let me just delve in. And some days it's like, I don't want to sit with this. I'm going to break. So I'm going to derail and go over to this track here, and I'm going to make origami cranes, or I'm going to turn on some music and just do a goofy dance, or, you know, I'm going to do something different. And in that derailing from that thought pattern, it was able to settle. So kind of two components to that, depending on how I felt, like not one over the other. It was kind of like, all right, this is not working. I'm just feeling like a miserable, sad sack. I'm going to head over and try this one over here. But that also takes time, and you will also have to understand that you're going to feel like a sad sack and you're going to feel terrible, and that's okay too. You know, like Eeyore, it's okay. Sometimes you're going to be like Eeyore, and sometimes you'll be like Piglet, and sometimes you'll be like Tigger, and sometimes you'll be like Pooh. Like, you know, like you're going to have those, and Rabbit, you're going to have those mixture of things, and you have to get better at being okay. Like, it's opposed to this robot mentality that we have, like, smile all the time.
Totally.
That's the biggest difference I see from, like, the Western, Eastern way of thinking, that we, if I may say so, for the Western, we think like when life is fabulous and you're on top, is like the normal level of living. And then when you go down, the fall is so much deeper. Where I see, like, maybe in the East, correct me if I'm wrong, Susan, you know this better than me, but then you're like in the middle, this is life, and now it's a little bit better, now it's a little bit worse, but then the fall isn't as big as here. That, like, when you make money, when you love someone, and everything is tops. That's the normal state of mind, which actually isn't the truth. And I think the sooner we realize that, the easier it is to navigate through life, so to say.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think that's such a beautiful observation. I mean, in the teaching of Buddhism and even in yoga, Krishna said to Arjuna, to be a true yogi, you can't be eating too much or too little. One cannot sleep too much or too little. You cannot overwork or not work at all. So it's how do we find this middle ground, moderation? It's like I recognize, okay, I'm going through those emotions. It might be positive, it might be negative, but that's okay, like you were saying.
Yeah.
And also another step, I think going further, it's also to recognize, even though I'm going through those emotions, those experiences, but that's not me. I feel like in the language, we always say, I am so happy, I am so angry, but I'm not happy, I'm not angry. I'm just observing and experiencing those different emotions.
Yes.
But yeah, I absolutely agree. I think it's such a beautiful way to see how can we slowly bring ourselves to the middle, to the middle, to the middle. And then hopefully we can live in a state of mind that's more peaceful. Yeah, Ray, I was going to also ask you, because you were mentioning for you, movement has always been a thing for you since a little girl. So that's why when you were going through some challenges, some depression, naturally you turn to the movement to help you feel more embodied. But if someone who's not used to a lot of movement or active lifestyle, how would you suggest us to get started?
In yoga itself, how to get started? Yeah. I mean, my mother has multiple sclerosis, so she's 70, and she is only just, or not quite 70, sorry, I'm not sure, so I can't say that yet. She started yoga herself, and it's fascinating watching from a person that is less capable in movement due to the condition. And then on the other hand, I've got my father who's very capable, nearly 70, but has had a lot of injuries from overworking his body. So, I've got two different versions. But what's interesting is watching them both find this middle ground. And this middle ground is just sitting in the moment, which is when I said in my book, we are all yogis, we are all breathing, where I would say to someone to sit, like, can you just sit for a minute and feel the breeze on your face and breathe nice, moderate, aware breaths that go down into your belly? Like, that's, when I'm practicing yoga and I'm anxious and I'm doing all these phenomenal poses, I'm not practicing yoga. I'm doing some gymnast routine. Like, I will be honest, and I think everyone should be honest about when I'm practicing yoga and I'm breathing and I'm feeling and I'm connecting and doing the poses, that's when I'm doing yoga. And that was my fatal mistake. When I started, I was trying to do gymnastics, which was hidden as asanas and cool poses, as opposed to I was trying to do fitness from the inside out, which was first breathe, second feel, third create the shape. So I think that a lot of us are doing phenomenal gymnastics, and it would be great to see a lot of us first breathe, feel, and then see what shape we created. And movement with music helps me to do that really well because there's no plan. And one of the reasons why I don't like to plan my classes is because, when I also train people in personal training, like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? I'm like, I'm not telling you. And they're like, no, I hate that. I hate not knowing. I'm like, I love that because it's so good for you. I feel like we're so ingrained that we need to know everything. We need to plan everything. And so when someone needs to begin, they need to know nothing. They just need to come with an open mind. And if they want to, they could sit and try meditation with music, listening to a voice, sitting outside quietly, staring at a candle. And if that feels good, maybe they just sit in child's pose next, if that's a comfortable pose for them. Or maybe they do some sun salutations. But as to where one starts, where it's not movement orientated, let's breathe and feel. That's the first two requirements, and that's really the only requirements to do yoga. The poses are phenomenal and Western based. And, even when you look back in history of the poses, they come from gymnastics background too. So I've always thought, like, just breathe and feel. If you can do that and eventually do that to a point where you actually enjoy it, then you're on the go, you're on the right path.
That's incredible. We should put it on a shirt. Just breathe, feel, and then make the shapes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It won't look as good on Instagram. That's the problem.
No. It'll look pretty boring, but we can make funny faces.
But that's the real yoga.
Yeah, I'm doing yoga. I know, and I think that's a huge problem with Instagram. Like, I love Instagram because it's so inspiring, but I think in this visceral and visual culture, we're not getting the message across. And there's a lot of us with masks on, which is also, part of my book, including myself on some days, that we're not being honest. And I think we need to be more real in the sense that we are not creating one story. We're creating a human experience. And I think that's the other thing that I think with yoga is it's a human experience, yoga. It's not a shape,
Absolutely.
It's like music is a human experience. I'm sure as an artist, man, you would create music from the depths of your soul, and that will be different every day because how you feel. Like, you can't create a happy beated song when you're feeling like the world is ending, but you can create a wonderful soulful song that's, or tearful song. Like, I think we try and take the human out of everything these days. And I think we need to put the human back in. That's why there's yoga people that judge, or we that judge. That's why that, meditation doesn't work, because our human mind is a monkey right now. That's why we can't create music right now, because something's not balanced. And I've got to be human right now and say, well, not a robot, can't do music today. I'm going to have my coffee and sit down and relax, So I feel like we need to put the human back, to put the human back, you need to breathe and feel.
Amazing. Yeah, my teacher always say that why you see people only do those crazy poses on Instagram, because that's what you can see. That's where you get likes. If you take a picture saying, look at how peaceful my mind is, no one would care. But at least, hopefully with the yoga asanas, we can start to at least purify the body. We can start to get the energy moving. And then over time, a lot of people starting from asana, then we start to become more attracted to the inner part of yoga, meditation, breathing technique, concentration. Then hopefully we can start to become more human rather than just like, let me perfect this amazing shape so I can get a lot of likes on Instagram. That's such a good point. Love it.
Yeah, and try to really see it to not mix the two things up.
Yeah.
Like your own yoga practice has nothing to do with Instagram.
No,
but
no.
And that's the problem, I think, with many, that they mix those things up.
So you do have a lot of Instagram followers. If people looking at you saying, hey, she does such an amazing yoga asana, maybe I can be like her, I can grow a social media following, what would you say to them?
I would say that I don't know how this occurred, except that I was sharing me. And every time someone asks that, do I have a plan? I don't. I have a plan to be myself. And please be yourself and share you. And that's all I can say. If you go out there with this intention to create the number again, you're gonna be very out of whack and out of harmony. Like, I can tell you from when I first started to now, like, some people have told me how many followers I had, and I'm still like having shitty days, and I'm still not feeling like worthy. So I can tell you, and I still don't own a car or a house, kind of things, I'm still working towards lots of goals. So I can tell you this doesn't really equate to value in life, as in terms it might build you some money and business and all those things and connections, but it will only create value if you have the connection to it. So my view of this is I've built an open hearts community of like-minded souls, of a space where people can come and share or be inspired or triggered, and we grow. And that's all it is. And that number reflects everyone else, not me. Like, I just have the name that's there, but I mean, it reflects to everyone else that resonates or doesn't resonate and follows because they don't, whichever it is, because there's a whole lot of mixture in betweens. It reflects that. And that's what I've always said. It's like Nike. Nike is nothing without the people that buy it. I'm nothing in terms of without the number on social media, but I am something if I believe in me. So start with that. Like, you have nothing to prove, as Ian says, my physiology teacher, nothing to prove as a yoga teacher, as a human, as a being, but everything to share. And there's over 7 billion different people and 7 billion over ways to live, to do yoga. And somewhere, some way, someone needs your life. So it's nothing to prove, everything to share.
That's absolutely beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing your light and sharing your heart and just really being your authentic self. I absolutely love it.
Thank
you. Yeah. And I think we do have a bunch of flash questions, something more fun that
we didn't tell you about this because we wanted to.
So we're going to ask you some of those questions and you'll be answering just without thinking.
Oh God.
It's really simple. It's really straightforward.
I'm blonde, I don't think.
All right, I'll ask the first question. Forward fold or back bend? No thinking.
I was thinking of all three. My body went into all three in a visual.
It's okay to think. It's okay to give it a few seconds.
I'll go forward fold.
And coffee or tea?
Tea.
Then Instagram or LinkedIn?
Instagram.
And why?
Because I met some crazy, awesome people like you guys on there.
Okay, here's mine. Never ever do a handstand again, or never be able to use vowels when speaking again.
Vowels. I think it would be so funny.
Okay, here's one more then. Answer every phone call for the rest of your life with, did you put another shrimp on the barbie, mate? Or walk backwards for the rest of your life?
Oh, good one. Did you put another shrimp on the barbie, mate?
Okay, next one is Mount Wellington or the Alps?
Mount Wellington.
Last one. Susan or Mons?
Say that one more time.
Susan or Mons?
I'm on a tightrope, and I'm going to go with Sumans.
Oh, you're so sweet. We thought that would be fun to put it at the end.
Or you could go Masu also. That would sound like marsupial almost. So it might be better Masu because it would almost sound like marsupial in Australian and it'd be much more Australian. Marsupial mouse, that kind of, g'day mate, I'm a marsupial mouse kind of. Masu.
Now you're going all Australian on us.
That's my weird logic.
I love it. And I think that's all the questions we're talking about. Can you just talk a little bit more, in closing, talk a little bit more about your book and where people can find you if they want to learn from you, connect with you?
Sure. My book is on Amazon, and some local retailers have it as well. And there's Audible, Kindle, and normal reading, so whichever floats your boat. And yeah, that just is basically just about me sharing my journey, but also tools that are helping me in everyday life. But more importantly, hoping that I'll leave footprints in the sand for my daughter to have a little bit more upward spiral of kindness, that we can all just be a little more kinder inside to internally externalize it to be kinder outside to each other, instead of like snapping when we're having bad days and so on, or judging. And to find me, I guess you can find me on Open Hearts Can Unite, which is YouTube and Instagram, and the book. And then you can just contact me randomly and say, g'day, mate, shrimp on the barbie. And yeah, so we can flow from there and say uru.
Yeah, so lovely. And the last thing, do you want to join us for our little outro signature, which is really simple? It's only yoga yay, and on the yay you go all in with your hands in the air.
Ooh, like the YMCA, but it's yay for yoga.
Yes, but just yay.
Well, cool, because it's only one move, so I should be able to remember that. That sounds possible.
Or you can do it upside down.
Yeah, the yoga one is really serious and the yay is not as serious. If you
I would have thought it was the opposite way around. All right, let's give it a crack.
Okay, 1, 2, 3. Yoga.
Yoga.
Yay!